Morning, everybody. Happy Sunday.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning, everyone.
I didn't know if there was more.
No, I always like to start with a hello. Hey, thanks for coming out today. How's your day going? And just welcome everybody into the show. So I want to say thanks for everybody who's already here. I see we got a room full already. We got John, Stefan, and Swabby. Welcome, Swabby, and Stefan. So, of course, today we're talking with the Summit team. And that's, of course, Swych and DT Mike. Now, first of all, gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming out on a Sunday morning because most people are curled up in bed still nice and warm. So thank you.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. So as always, guys, I like to keep the honesty and transparency. So first of all, I am an investor in Swych. Second of all, this is a sponsored event. But that means I'm going to be even more harsh and more critical. And I'm going to dig even deeper than anybody has before because I want to know the facts, and I hope that you do too. So thanks for joining us today.
You know, we're happy to be here. I know we got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. A lot of questions I can't wait to get grilled on.
Oh yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
So if you guys would, let's set the Wayback Machine to a couple years ago. For those who don't know what Swych is or haven't heard of him before, how did Swych come to be?
Yeah, I think, Mike, I hope you don't mind if I take the reins on this one here.
Hey, you've been here from the start, so you take it.
Awesome. Appreciate you. So yeah, I mean, Swych came to birth from Titano. So we're talking November 21, so quite some time ago on that, which I think is phenomenal in the DeFi space, right? You know, you've had a lot of projects come and go since then, and it's amazing to still be here. Of course, different name, different idea of what we're building, but still the same team, still the same community. But it started off as Titano, years ago as kind of this auto rebasing token. Really took the markets by storm. We saw so many different forks come from it. There actually got to a point where there was a website tracking how many forks of Titano there were. I think it was in the thousands at some point. So we really were, building kind of ahead of the time, leading on that. And it kind of came to a point where we realized, auto rebasing and inflation it's getting a little crazy. It's getting a little wild, and some things needed to change. We kept on it for as long as we could. Because it was our baby. It was our claim to fame type of thing. But we realized, maybe it's time to pivot. It's time to change. So we decided to go this DEX route, and we came out with the DEX about a year after Titano. And eventually, it started to merge a little bit, and we renamed into Swych. And the biggest thing that we looked at Swych with was, providing real yield, passive income, ways to not just worry about the token price, but look at what you can get out of your investment that's not completely dependent on if a whale sells or if a whale buys. So we wanted to find different utility, and what we're coming out with now is a perpetual exchange, something that's been in the works for quite some time, along with other utilities that have been very much in the works, changing around our tokenomics to be more friendly to users, easier access, easier listings on certain exchanges, things like that. And we're here now. We're here finally bringing this utility to fruition, getting that perp DEX out, moving into these phase 2 eras, bringing out this lottery stuff, this NFT stuff, all this exciting things, and really kind of following through with the promises that we're bringing to the community here.
Okay. And and that's one thing that in the DeFi world, 2 years is like forever. That makes you like a great-great-grandpa. The fact that you guys survived that long, I think is impressive. And I think a lot of that has to do with the community. But now there's one thing that kind of stands out to me, and anybody who knows me, they know I've had a great many battles with like Mad Hatter over the pillars, things like that, about doxing a team. And now the Swych team is not doxed or KYC'd, but yet you've still survived for 2 years. So this is one of those, it's a very unique aspect. Now, let me ask you guys, you two are kind of the front man anytime I see an AMA or an event like this. Why isn't the team up here more often? Can you explain for people who don't know?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked a little bit about this in previous AMAs, but happy to go in more depth on that.
Yeah, just briefly.
Yeah, I mean, really, when we're looking at the project as a whole, or anything as a whole, you have people who kind of specialize in talking and specialize in community engagement and things like that. And we're kind of just the people who really specialize in that. We have the deepest pulse, the deepest grasp on everything that's going on within our community. And I think, I would guess the easiest way to say is we're uniquely capable in handling, AMAs and stuff like that because of that connection to the community. Now, I think we've talked about it plenty of times, the founders, because, although we're part of that team, we're not the creators of this project. We don't hold all the keys. We don't make the final decisions. We are, one level of team within a grander scheme of things. So for that reason, people often ask, hey, well, why don't we get the founders on here? Why don't we have them talk? They're the ones who are making all those decisions. And it's a valid point. It's when people bring up KYC and things like that, they get, people get worried sometimes. They're like, oh, who are these guys? But I will say that, we're a very big world, right? With people who speak lots of different languages, people who specialize in different areas, and a few things. One is the founders, they don't natively speak English. So to come up and talk fluently and to be able to represent the project as the best that they can, they just don't have that level of confidence that myself or Mike would. We have this confidence in speaking, confidence in the ability to have these discussions, knowing that what we say we can back. The other thing too is, as far as what they do, they're more of the development side, the behind the scenes type of people. You never really see those CEOs or those CFOs who are jumping on those types of calls. And occasionally you will, I'm not saying you won't. There's definitely CEOs who jump into things like that. But, they bring on people who specialize in those community, those talks, those discussions. And that's really where we come in. We're the people who jump in, who relay the messages from what we hear the founders and also talk with the community and get those discussions flowing both ways. And that's why we're really here. And if you don't mind, I'll dive into KYC a little bit here.
Please do. Go ahead.
When we talk about KYC, this has been, I know, Mad Hatter and myself, and back when David was with it, we all used to talk about KYC and the levels that it goes with on that. And I think KYC is always something that's important to know what you're investing in. I won't say it isn't, but it can also be a tool used against you, right? There are plenty of KYC companies out there that, maybe you get hacked, right? And we've seen it where the play hack that happened in Titano, and they would think that was potentially a rug. They would think that's what it was, but it wasn't. And then they release all that information. You have, people knocking on your doors, and it isn't what actually happens. And so the KYCs are a double-edged sword. But I also think when we're at this point here where we're 2 years of being in this project, we're not somebody who's going to just, disappear. We're 2 years. We built a community for 2 solid years. And I think people should have a level of trust within just that length of time in that project. Now, I'm not to say that, give blind faith, always do your research, always be careful with anything in crypto. Please never overinvest, never put yourself in a position where you're banking on anything. But I think there's also a level of trust that you should have, knowing that we've been in this sector for so long, knowing that, we have these war chests that realistically could just be taken, but they haven't, because they are 100% monitored by the community, 100% monitored by us, and being put to use for the community and for what we're developing going forward.
Absolutely. And, it's kind of funny because I'm one of those, I've always argued that, yes, for me to do my due diligence in a team, I need to know who they are. If they're not KYC'd, if they're not doxed, how can I truly research and trust them? But like you're saying, you guys have 2 years out there and your war chests are not small. I mean, at any point in time, you could say, nah, we're closing the doors, we're done, we're out of here. But you didn't. Through the entire bear market, you guys have been here, you've continued to build. And, I've known Mike for a couple of years now in some other projects, things like that, where they did just close the doors. They're like, nah, we're done, wash out. So we kind of got some battle scars that we share there. And that's one thing that really stood out to me with the Switch team is you guys have been here this entire time, building, growing, although at any point in time you could have said, nah, you know what? It's just too tough. We're done. We're going to wash our hands. So I like that. And so, the whole thing is Switch kind of goes against my whole belief of you have to KYC a team. So yeah, proud of you guys for that.
Thank you. We'll take it. I'm going to put that as a badge on there now.
Absolutely. Do it. Serenity, seal of approval. Done. So, and I want to say thanks to everybody who's showing up today. Try to keep your questions till the end. We're going to have a whole bunch there. But if something pops up that you guys see in the chat, please just jump in and respond. It's an open show. And here at Down Home Crypto, it's kind of like you're sitting around the kitchen table. We're all chatting. We're learning. Anything you want to know, there is no question that's too hard. Nothing that's, taboo that we don't ask about. I'll ask about anything because I think that's how we all learn. So please, guys, share your questions, your comments, and your thoughts, and we will definitely get to them.
Awesome.
Okay, so we caught up to the present now. Of course, a lot of people here know about the December 4th. That's been lingering on the horizon. Now, first of all, I want to apologize to everybody that we had to postpone this because I got a call one morning just before we were supposed to do this and said, Jim, can we put that off? Would you break? What happened? So, guys, if you would fill us in, why did we postpone the first AMA that we had scheduled?
Yeah, Mike, I'll talk a little bit, and then if you want to go, because I want to give you some airtime here. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I am just.
I'll get my chance for sure. Yeah, you take it. You got it.
I think part of it was, whenever we have discussions like AMAs, fireside chats, things like that, we want to make sure that when we're talking, we're not just spewing, random garbage, right? or saying nothing, or not feeling confident with what we have to talk about on these talks. And so, when I was speaking with our founders and our internal development team on everything there, they just weren't ready to give a date at the time we had scheduled. And I was like, you know what? Rather than just go in there, build up hype for something that, I don't have confidence in to share out to a community, I would rather wait and see. And let's push it forward a little bit more. I hate the FOMO in attitude of everything, especially in this space, because it's just, you build up hype, and it's a letdown, so I hate that type of thing. So wanted to push it forward a little bit more. After that, finally got some confirmation. Our internal development team was like, all right, this is good. This is our date. And then I was, like, okay, thank God. We have something we can go with. We have something we could talk about. I don't have to worry. I don't have to get lynched anymore, But yeah, I mean, that's where we were. And I appreciate you so much for dealing with my last minute discussions on that. I was really hoping that by the time that morning was rising, I would be able to announce it even on our AMA that we were having that day. But I just didn't want, any positions, any hype to build up for something that I didn't have confidence with. And of course, for you as well, you are, a content creator who is, reaching out to your own audience. And we always want to make sure that people we partner with aren't put in an awkward situation, and never want something like that to happen. So I greatly appreciate you
that.
Flexing. Mike, I don't know if you want to talk about December 4th, I'll give you the honors on that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've it's been in the talks for a while of when we could put that out. And, I know there was a lot of talk around, putting it out sometime late November, and, the decision for December 4th was taken very seriously. And, we want to make sure that, especially the development team, a perpetual exchange is not something to take lightly, right? It's something where traders are going to have, whether it's $1 or $100 or $10,000 that they're trading with, and millions of dollars of liquidity. We want to make sure that even throughout all the testing that we've done, we've got our team ready and willing to jump in if needed, for anything that, somebody may have an issue with or have a question about or whatever it is. We want to make sure that we've got a whole week ahead of us to be able to do that for everybody. And I think, having December 4th as that date, even though it's a few days after maybe some expected, it's much more beneficial to ensure the security of not only the investors, the traders, but Swych overall.
Okay. And that makes perfect sense. And honestly, I think the fact that you guys said, hey, we're not ready, we're going to push it off, and you guys were transparent, you were honest about it. And I think that shows a huge amount of trust and honesty right off the bat, because so many projects would say, oh, well, it was this person's fault or that person's fault. You guys never played that game. And that's one thing I respect about the Summit team is, they don't play the who did what to who kind of game. They're always, this is what's happening, this is what's going to take to do it right. Sorry, but that's the way we're going to do it. And I respect that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we
appreciate it.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate that. I think that, the transparency with that, or anything, goes a long way to people, especially in crypto, regardless of what it is in life. But, it's best to be open about that stuff. And, again, at the end of the day, no matter what it may seem, the Swych team, the developers, the founders, everybody always has the best interest of, why we're here, right? The ones that brought us here. the investors, the community members, and everybody involved with that. So those are who we work for.
I do apologize. We have a troll, so we're gonna put them in timeout. So thank you on that. And
I was gonna say, I'm like, I don't think that was us.
I think it was either. And at first it was. And it's like, wait, what? And then I read it like, oh man. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's one of the problems we have within any live event is we're going to get trolls. We're going to get different people with different comments. And so guys, if there's any problems there, I do apologize for who may pop in, pop out. But then again, we run into that in the DeFi world. As we know, with a lot of projects out there, there's bad ones that come in, there's good ones come in. And the fact that you guys have lasted over 2 years and you've been honest, transparent, and direct. And just like we're talking about, if a problem arises, I've never seen you guys sweep it under the rug or try to downplay it. You've always kind of brought it to the front and center. So, okay, here's what we did. Here's the problem. Here's how we're fixing it. And I think that is something that I personally hold in very high respect in regards.
No,
yeah, we appreciate that. And, you're not going to be able to hide from ups or downs in DeFi, right? There's no secret that there's been ups and downs, and we know that. Everybody knows that. And obviously along the way, you're going to catch some that are not so happy with some of those, but we're, again, like you said earlier, we're still here, we're still building, nothing stopped. And December 4th is going to be proof of that latest, very time consuming build.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, community just in general, yeah, I mean, I am more than happy to see the community that we have here, but you're always going to have those people, and like I said, I was like looking at that message. I was like, wait a second, what? But it's just the people that you're going to have in the space. And I'll be the first to admit, there are, we are always working to have better transparency and better communication and get that out. It's a difficult place, but there's also no place you can really hide when it comes to crypto. Everybody thinks it's so anonymous. The blockchain does not lie. You can follow those transactions and you will get to the end. It's going to happen. So, I mean, it will happen. But I know one thing is that we really are striving always to give more communication, always more transparency. Of course, sometimes it takes time to, get an official statement out. I won't always say that things are quick. I'll be, again, the first to admit that, we're slow at times. I won't deny that. We have taken our time in certain things, but it's because we like to make sure everything's right. We like to make sure everything is coming out and it has a good impact. So, that's with everything that we do, with the people that we represent. We want to make sure we're being as transparent as we can, but also, meaningful with what we share, and not just things where it's, okay, we're just throwing it out as fast as we can and not looking to the impact that it's going to cause.
Right. And no, I think that's great. And so let's start diving into this December the 4th. So first of all, now you guys are creating a perpetual DEX. Why did you choose that? Out of the options out there in DeFi, why did you go with the perpetual DEX?
Yeah, I think when you were looking at perpetual exchanges just in general, okay, they're really strong in generating fees without a lot of the work required to do that. Now, I know that sounds weird. Kind of let me go where I'm getting at with this.
Okay, go ahead.
You have places like PancakeSwap, Uniswap, things like that, where, when you have an exchange, okay, you have to entice people to come to you. You have to get them to put their liquidity on your platform. And why would they come to your platform? And there's 1,000 other, DEXs out there and things like that, okay? Whereas a perpetual exchange is a lot easier because you're really the ones, you're choosing a few blue chip tokens, okay, maybe expanding on it more and giving different, boosts, different ways that you can earn from that by giving like rewards and such like that. Now, that's not to say other perpetual exchanges are not out there, okay? Right, there are tons of them out there, all right? But it's all about, taking the best from everything and combining it into one. And I think one thing with perpetual exchanges just in general is that, they can generate a lot of revenue. There's not, you obviously have to have a good amount of liquidity, but you don't have to reach out to hundreds or thousands of protocols and bring them over to your exchange, and then you have to worry about those coins that you have listed being scam projects, and then you're responsible for a level of that because you put them on your exchange, and so much more can come from that. So we looked at this Perpetual exchange platform and, hey, we can have people who trade on here and then directly give them rewards. You're taking your tokens or an NFT or whatever it may be that you're holding that value, and you're using it to get a real yield reward out of that. Rather than having to bank on another project that's buying and selling accruing fees, you're banking on the market doing the market, and everybody's going to be trading on the market, especially now. And the beautiful thing, and I think the biggest thing that we looked at when we went with the Perpetual exchange, it benefits from a bull market, it benefits from a bear market. There is no point in time where it's bad, because people are going to be trading when the price is low. People are going to be trading when the price is high. It's always going to happen. It's always going to bring in those fees. And we found it as one of the most reliable ways of a utility in fee generation for our community members and for our investors.
Okay. And no, that makes perfect sense. And like you're talking, a lot of these DeFi projects that say, well, we're going to take our treasury, we're going to invest 10% into this DeFi project, 10% into that one. And it's just like this revolving mess. And when it goes down, everything just starts train wrecking. So I like the fact that Perpetual Exchange doesn't rely on other DeFi projects.
Yeah, and just to add, for years, I think one of the biggest things people used for, real yields was adding liquidity on a swap DEX, on a standard DEX, and collecting fees from when people, swap their tokens. However, when you're looking at that, it takes a lot of volume on that liquidity pair to generate some decent revenue. And for example, it's a spot trade, right? So not a leverage trade. So if somebody swaps $100,000 worth of tokens on a swap DEX, right, there's fees based on that. But if they take that $100,000 and put it on a 10x leverage trade, you're looking at a position size of $1 million now with fees on that position. And trading is going to be something more that is something that's ongoing than swapping tokens to a different token. So from all the different real yield methods out there and strategies or ways of earning, a perpetual exchange is one of the most lucrative.
Absolutely. And that makes sense. And so now one thing you guys mentioned before is there are several perpetual exchanges out there and more popping up every day. So what is up your sleeve to make sure that Swych kind of comes out on top and is more the preferred method of perpetual exchange on the Binance Smart Chain?
Yeah, I think one is, there are a lot of perpetual exchanges out there. Not a lot of them focus primarily on the Binance Smart Chain. A lot of them are on different chains. So, we're obviously targeting that smart chain, Binance Smart Chain network, okay, when we're looking for everything here. But really what we're looking to do more than anything else is give a educational element and a reward element of things. So when we talk about those two things, one is we're looking at the educational side. We have a paper trading platform that's a one-to-one replica of our normal trading platform, which allows people who are new to trading to see exactly what they would be doing. It doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make it harder. You're just trading it the exact same way you normally would, and you get to get a feel for it. The other thing with that though is, Mike, who has a ton of experience trading here, has been working really hard on creating a lot of content for educational. And I know, Mike, you were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier before, so you can definitely expand on this more than I ever could. But, you talked on about how, when you're looking at trading just in general, or, how do I do a certain type of trade? You're searching through hundreds of articles or watching these videos, which are 40 minutes long, and it just becomes too much, So we really want to make an easy to use, straightforward. This is what you do. This is how you understand it. Head on over to paper trading. Don't worry about anything. Just jump on in. And then if you like it, if you feel confident, head on over to the real trading. Now, what you did in paper trading, you might have had a good day, but that might have been the market having a good day. So when you hop on over to the real thing, you can't really predict that, but at least you know how it works. You have an idea of how to, place the trades, how to, put limit orders and things like that. So that's something that's really nice. And that's kind of the educational side. The other side, and I'll leave more of that for Mike, because Mike is the man on that one.
Right.
But when we're talking the reward side of things here, it's really about how can we give just people who hold, an investment in Swych, okay, the most reward out of it. It's not necessarily giving liquidity. Just take, you're buying and you own a token, okay, and how are you earning just off of that, okay? And so we're trying to maximize as much as we possibly can on the fee accrual and give as much as we safely can back to the investor. And the reason I say safely is because when you're a new perpetual exchange, you want to have as much liquidity as you possibly can, at least at the start, so that more people can trade. And that means, hey, we start off at a certain rate and we adjust as needed so that we can get more trading on here, more liquidity, so that we can give everybody more fees. So, when we're looking at those rewards, we're looking to give the highest possible amount, but also giving more money back to our liquidity pool so people can continue trading. At the end of the day, the more people that are trading, the higher interest rates you get as APRs and things like that. And so we are looking, of course, to get into the 40s, the 50%, which would be phenomenal and absurd for real yield. Okay. But at start, we obviously want to hit, the 10 to 20%, which is very much doable. We ran the numbers. We look at how much that would need in fees, depending on how much we have staked on tokens. It's very, very much doable. So those are really the biggest things that we're looking for there is, giving rewards to people who simply are invested in the Swych, providing an educational element. And I think the final and biggest thing here is really just the community, right? We have this massive community that continues to be here, which helps out significantly. I will always say that you can have the best project in the world, the best ideas, the best execution. But if nobody knows about that, it's not going to go anywhere. And when you have a community of tens of thousands of people, all right, what you do gets broadcasted so much easier. Okay. Now, and that's not to say our project, what we designed, our interface is not good, because we're very proud of what we have. It's a very easy to use interface, which is part of the reason why we see ourselves succeeding pretty well with this perpetual exchange. But, when you have a community that's really backed it, that's really able to help broadcast things out, at least in that Binance Smart Chain world, all right, it makes it so much easier and it makes us a huge propellant right out the gate.
Okay. Now, real quick.
Oh, sorry. No, please.
Actually, you made me think of a question I just want to throw out there before I forget about it. So now, this is one of those critical sides. Of course, we want the fees because that's how we're going to generate revenue for the Swych token. But how are you guys managing the balancing from, let's say, other perpetual exchanges versus the Swych perpetual exchange to make sure our fees aren't too high to where people are going to someone else or too low to where we're not making profit? Is there a constant balance, or how is that being monitored and modified?
I think when we look at fee generation, we're obviously looking to competitors, right? We're looking at what other perpetual exchanges have as fees. And when I also talk on fees, I guess I also refer to and this is not the actual fee amount. I'm just doing it for the simpleness of math here and putting everything on there. But if you take 1% as a fee, okay, for example, all right, 50% of that 1% goes towards, rewards, and 50% would then go towards the project. And that then gets broken down to maybe 40% into liquidity and 10% into a treasury. Again, these are not real numbers. Nobody take that for that. There is, again, just for simplicity of math on here. So when we look at that, we're really looking to just see what is the best balance possible. Okay, with that we can give our investors the highest reward possible without, of course, bankrupting the system. Because if you don't have enough liquidity, you can't have people trade, which means nobody's getting anything. Nobody's getting fees that are going through. But if you also put the fees so low, well, then nobody's going to want to trade. Why am I going to come here? So it's this catch-22. So I think what we're looking at as far as that side of things is balancing, what are our competitors doing? How can we position ourselves better? Okay. But also position ourselves in a way that we're getting more traction overall and more leverage that people can use on the trade. So we have some numbers that have been bounced back and forth that we're looking to share probably this coming week, because we're on December 4th, so we'll see it here. They're doing the math a little bit just to make sure. But then when we're talking, what do the rewards, actually yield is going to depend on how many of those fees are actually coming in. So the percentages of that fee and where it goes is one element, but then it's how much money is actually coming in to generate the actual rewards, to get the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% APRs type of stuff. And that's going to be how many people are trading, How much are they, leveraging? What are those looking like? And we won't really know that until we get the first week. People have come to me all the time and said, well, do you guys have an estimate? Do you have an estimate? Do you know how many people are paper trading right now? What about the trading that's going on? Well, paper trading, I can't give you an estimate because people could be saying, I'm going to put $500,000 on a short. Like, well, that's not really helping, So,
right.
But when we also look at our standard trading that we've had in testing, we kept it a shallower liquidity pool, just because it's a testing environment. We don't want to throw all this money at it if there were bugs or issues or things like that. So it's part of the reason why when we look at phase 2 and getting that real yield, why we separated those two, is because we want to know how much yield generation we're going to have before we start pushing everything out. And that's just going to take at least a week, at least 2 weeks at the minimum for us to see any numbers before we really are able to tell the community this is where we're sitting as far as fees.
Okay. And that makes perfect sense. Now, of course, something we've seen time and time again is as a project just launches into the next phase or something happens, of course, there's a ton of interest. So there's a lot of influx of people utilizing that new platform thing. But over time, it starts to get, shall we say, stale, if you will.
Yep.
What do you guys have in the works to make sure that Swych does stay exciting? And is it going to be gamification, or what can we look forward to that's going to keep it on the cutting edge?
Yeah, I think, well, for one element here, I think we're really going to expand on that educational side of things. I know education doesn't always sound exciting to everybody, but it sounds exciting to us. Mike, I don't know if you want to talk about education, what you're working on, and then I can jump into the gamification NFT type of stuff.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Well, some people know who have tested it have had a little access to just some of the basic guides on how to use the Perpetual exchange, right? So we're with the Perpetual exchange, we obviously want to attract traders who have been trading, but we also fully expect and want to attract people who are new to trading that are wanting to get into it. And so through that, we want to be able to have something that for the people who know how to trade, there's a paper trading exchange that they can get familiar with it really quick before jumping into the live platform and putting real money on it. And then for the new people, they can use the paper trading platform for a while and get used to that and place trades as if it's real money, by the way, to build good habits, but, and then move into the live trading. But for those who are new to trading, we also want to bring out just kind of an introduction to trading, right? So whether you're brand new or you have a little bit of experience, we want to put something out that kind of brings everything into one place. You can go on Google and you can search for different types of strategies and or on YouTube, and you'll spend months, researching and looking at all the different strategies. So we just want to bring something that's all in one place, a beginner's guide to an intermediate guide that will give you a little bit of information on, what trading is, the risk management side of it, the emotions side of it, some different types of, candlestick patterns to look at, some bearish type patterns, some bullish type patterns, and overall just a general place where you can get your feet wet. And then you can carry that over into the Perpetual exchange, the paper trading, and learn on there as well before you move into the live. So I think, like Summit said, that's one thing that's, we hope to set us apart a little bit, is to be able to start on that paper platform if you're new, and then move to the live, or if you're experienced, get familiar with it, and then move live as well if you need to. But we really hope to put the educational aspect of it at the front as well. We want to make sure that people understand the risks with trading, have some knowledge about it, when they're putting their money towards it.
Okay. And now for some people who may not understand what quote paper trading is, can you give us a quick synopsis of how that's different from regular trading, just so beginners understand that they are not at risk?
Sure. Yeah. It's like someone said, our paper trading platform is a like for like, one-to-one of our live platform. The only difference is with the live platform, you're using actual funds, real money. And on the paper trading, it's just that you're using basically testnet funds, right? Fake BNB or BTC, whatever it may be. But you're utilizing live price data. It's not delayed. It's not any sort of fake pricing or false anything. It's live price data, just like you would get on the live paper trading platform, but you're trading and learning with paper funds before you move over to live. But like I said earlier, it's important. And one of the biggest things I think traders make is when it comes to paper trading, there's no emotions because it's not your money, right? And then as soon as you move over to the live, all of a sudden it's real. And you can be very, what's the word? You can be very confident on paper trading. And then, when you move over to live, it gets real. So I always preach and I always tell people to treat it like it's real money. Plan your trade your plan, whether you're trading live, whether you're trading on paper trading, because the most successful ones out there, they remove those emotions as much as possible. And being able to do that on our paper trading platform and with the flick of a button, go to live, I think is going to be huge.
Okay. And now let me ask you, for those who are just starting out, is there going to be some, like I said, we showed some of the educational pieces here that are all blurred. That's sneak peek. Nobody else has seen those guys yet. So, but are there going to be regular classes or things like that where people can come into the Swych community and say, hey, I need some advice. Am I trading this right? Just insight and guidance. Is that going to be part of the Swych community?
So for me, that's certainly something that, I would personally want to do. I think there's a fine line that you walk with that between, educating somebody and, putting someone into a position where they want to follow what you're doing. There's so many different strategies and different methods out there that what works for me may not work for you, and what works for you may not work for me. Right. I've had so many people ask me different questions on, what styles I use and what I do. But again, I always preface that, this may not work for you. When I started in trading, I went through, 50, 100 different strategies. Countless amounts of strategies. And some of them I didn't give long enough a shot, whatever it was. But eventually I found what worked for me. And for some people, again, that doesn't work for. So when it comes to educating on that aspect, 100%, I myself am open to educating people on, what I look for, or what, if they see something, what my thoughts might be. But it's important to understand that those are, that's not trading advice on what to do. It's just something to learn from.
Absolutely. And that's one thing I've personally tried trading, and I've learned from different people. I've watched different videos, and it is not as easy as it looks. Like, well, it's easy. When it goes down, you buy it. When it goes up, you sell it, right? How hard can that get? No, it is not that easy, man.
Yeah, if you only knew what it's going to do, it'd be easy, right?
Right.
But you can use technical analysis to make the best educated decision that you can. But there's not a single person out there that knows for sure what it's going to do. So, that's another thing we talk about in the, in some of the educational material is the risk management portion of it, because no matter how good you are, no matter how long you've been trading, it doesn't take but one or two bad trades to undo years of success, right? So always having a good risk management plan and practicing that with every trade, as I always say, plan your trade, trade your plan. You need to stick with that and practice that, because that's what will make you successful. If you don't and you let emotions take over that, it's a bad spiral. So
it is. And I've personally been up and down on that. It's like, hey, I'm doing great. And I was like, God, what the? And I don't even know why it happened. It's like, there is no logical reason. I see the chart. It's perfect. That's the bottom. Why did it go? Yeah. And so I think it's great that you guys are giving the paper aspect versus just jumping in live, say, hey, risk your money, throw the dice and see what happens. I definitely want to get everybody in the community. If you want to learn about this, if you want to ask questions, down in this video is all the links to the Discord, the website, everything like that. Jump in there and ask questions. And that's a great thing here. I've known Mike for a couple of years, like I said, and he is always happy to share information with the understanding that it may not work for you. And I think that's a definite safety tip we have to put out there for everybody.
Yeah, and I think 100%. It's when we talk about, and kind of just to add on, we would love to do classes like that. Love to get things like that going. But a few things, like Mike said, we don't want followers. We want people just to be educated by it. More importantly, too, I also want Mike to sleep and have some time. So as of course, if it's something that's really wanted, we are of course going to look to expand in that area, expand in that team, that education side of things. Like at the end of the day, as a crypto project, it's kind of like a company too. You bring on people that you need. And so, as we expand more, we might see more people who come to help out on that education side of things or that troubleshooting side of things. I know, I've talked in like other AMAs as well, kind of about how we might bring on more devs, bring on more community management, things like that. Because the bigger you get, the more help you need.
Right.
So yeah,
absolutely. And so now, for those who don't trade, maybe people right now they're watching this like, well, I was interested in Swych, but I don't know how to trade, and I really don't want to learn how to trade. So talk to me about the opportunities that exist within Swych for people that are not traders. They're just standard, hey, I want to put my tokens in, I want them to earn and call it a day.
Well, yeah, I think the beautiful thing about it is, whether you're a trader or not, if you're taking your tokens or you're just investing into the protocol, you're getting from that regardless. You're making the money off of those people who would be trading, and the people who are trading are also making the money off of their own trades because they're getting a portion of the fees. So you're getting the money back. But it's nice because it's a utility element for the ecosystem that we're growing. Yes, it is a main feature, a main focus that we have. But at the end of the day, our focus is, of course, the investors in Swych. And that's going to be the token, and that's going to be the NFTs that we have, which I can segue into here a little bit, which is something we're looking at next. Yeah. So NFTs, they've seen, ups and downs. We've seen all of the Bored Apes collections that kind of go crazy. And I think NFTs offer unique opportunities, right? They offer a level of scarcity and excitement that goes with them. Sometimes it feels a little bit more tangible because you have this picture, they're exciting, they're fun, but you also have to have something that backs them. They have to have some type of use case. I myself, for one, really never understood art. I can't buy into people who go in, buy a $5 million picture that just has a red line on it. Like I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. If it's what you do, okay, please by all means go for it, but I don't get it. So what I like though, is something that looks cool or something that's unique, but also has something of value and utility behind it, which is what we're trying to do here. And that is create these NFTs that earn, that level up, and that soon could be implemented in gaming elements. But to start, kind of where I talk on this is, when we're talking NFTs, we want to just have a way for people to maybe, take some of their tokens, convert them in NFTs. We've talked about a burning mechanism to help reduce inflation and size on that. We also look at NFTs as a way of, going ahead and maybe getting more real yield out of your investment. Maybe it's a multiplier, or maybe you get more out of lotteries, which again, talking more on stuff like that as well.
Right.
But another type of investment that you can have. Now the difference between an NFT and of course a token is you're not reliant on a liquidity pool. You're reliant on what, the best way I could put it is what somebody is willing to pay for it, or what the value it has behind, right? Is it either generating you a lot of revenue, A, or B, is it something that's so unique that, by rules of supply and demand, that you want to get access to it that way. So NFTs are just one segment of what we want to come out with, because we understand that when you purchase an NFT, you are reliant on those two things. Whereas a token, you have the benefits of people buying and selling constantly, where that price can fluctuate a little bit there. So we want to have, give investors a choice between doing those two, and allowing them unique abilities between those two. So our NFTs, of course, will provide different multipliers, different access to rewards, higher rewards in some cases, because you aren't getting the benefits of a liquidity pool. Whereas a token, you're still getting good rewards, but you might miss out on some rewards from lottery, or you might miss out on multiplier bonuses that you could get from something that happens with the NFTs and things like that. But of course, NFTs we're also looking for is it opens up a new doorway to gamification. Maybe you battle with these NFTs. Maybe these NFTs get you access to a game. Maybe these NFTs are upgradable in a sense of putting armor on or turn into a mech or something like that. Okay. Of course, these are things that are great to put together in a think tank, but execution is always the hardest. Being able to put this in the real world is something that's much more difficult. And I think a lot of NFT projects, they have these really, really high hopes, and they come out and they're like, we're going to make this like the next Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic the Gathering. And it just flops, because they don't realize the level that goes into everything. So we also want to make sure that when we're coming out with this, it's manageable and it's something that can be executable rather quickly. We don't want to be in development stages for years for some type of game for it to just, all right, fizzle. But that's just something that we look at the NFTs. We want it to be a gamification. We want it to be interactive. But to start, we want it to be able to get utility primarily and be able to earn more or multiply more from your investment that you have existing.
Okay. Now, one quick concern I want to throw out there. Sorry, Mike, let me interrupt real fast.
Go for it.
One question. Something I've seen time and time again, and I think a lot of us in the DeFi space have, is you get a project and they say, okay, we got this token and you can earn through this token. Then a few months later, they say, well, now we have this NFT. You have to buy this NFT to earn through this token now. And they require one after another until you never actually get whole. They just require you to keep buying. How is Swych going to do that differently to avoid that type of scenario?
Yeah, I think for one, the Swych token will always exist. If anything, the only thing that we would make a change to is a migration to the same exact token, but purely for listing on CoinMarketCap reasons. There's a whole thing with proxy contracts that I'm happy to dive deeper into if you really wanted to, but it's kind of completely different from the question you just asked on.
Sure.
So I'll save that. If we want to go more about it, But that would be the only change on a token element that we'd be looking at when we're talking about NFTs. Okay. And it's something that I've spoken with the founders and spoken with on the devs, okay, is we really do value the investment our token holders have, right? And if anything that we were to have, if we were to convert into NFT related things, it would simply be you can take the Swych tokens you have and convert them into an NFT. It's something that we actually are bringing on board, something called the high stakes NFT, and it's only available to Swych holders who have been here, who are invested in the protocol and stuff like that. Now, as far as will it be something where you have to convert it into a completely different NFT in the future? No, the NFTs will be something ecosystem based. That said, I would be lying if there wasn't some type of upgrades that you could do, right? Maybe you upgrade that NFT to get a bigger share in something. Right. I always am one to, whereas, the more you invest, you should see a bigger and more sizable return that comes from it. Somebody who invests $1 should not be making the same amount in real yield as somebody who invested $1 million. It wouldn't make sense. Nobody would invest $1 million then, So there could be something where, hey, in the future, if you want to get higher yields, you'll still maybe you have to upgrade your NFT, or maybe you'll have to put more, tokens in staking. It's just because the more tokens you stake, the higher you get on a yield on something like that in general. But for the NFT side, maybe you have to level it up. You'll still get rewards, but it won't be as high as this, and that's just because as you start to see more NFTs come into circulation, more people, investing, more things get diluted. And so now when things get diluted, you have to find a way to, reward other people for putting more in or upgrading without diluting, having somebody invest a little bit more into this or a little bit more into that. But the idea behind these NFTs is to give you rewards across the ecosystem. The same thing can be said about the token. We're not looking for it to be where, you are having to invest in this so that you get this, and then invest in that so you get access to that. I have seen countless projects do it myself. I hate it. I want to smack them over the head with it because I don't want to buy 17 different coins and 14 NFTs so I can get 3% return on my investment on that. But I will say, evolutions happen, pivots happen. Okay. We want to look at how the market is, how, our investors are. We don't want to, have over dilution of anything. We also don't want to put people in a position where they're constantly buying to get rewards. So our main goal is to make it as easy as possible and let investors invest as easily as possible. So really 2 different elements: NFTs, tokens, invest in those. How they expand in the future, the path is still being written, okay? But I think we have a general idea what we're looking like, but it's not going to turn into something where you need to constantly buy something new to stay invested.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, that was the big thing I wanted to pause. I am sorry, Mike. Please continue, my man.
No, you're fine. I was just going to go back to the real yield. You mentioned earlier about the, what's in it for investors, right? And, Summit briefly touched on the real yield aspect of it. And when traders trade, it generates revenue or generates fees on the Perpetual exchange, which generates revenue. And, investors are going to get a share of that revenue from that. And then, as Summit said, there's some other ways that those investors can, possibly earn bonuses on that revenue, or be opened up to additional revenue sources within the Swych ecosystem, through those NFTs and things like that. So, but especially in the beginning, as we roll out the Perpetual exchange, and then phase 2 when that rolls out, it's the investors are benefiting from that real yield generation from the Perpetual exchange.
Okay, and no, that makes sense, and that's one thing. Now, the next question I have real quick is talking about smaller investors. Now, you have, of course, a new bull market is coming. We're going to get new investors coming in, and that's going to be from the wealthy who have tons of money to blow to very much a lot of my community that I talk to. They're buying in for $10 a week. Now, is Swych going to have an entry point for pretty much every class, or is there going to be like a minimum $500 buy-in? How does that work to make sure it's open for the entire community?
Yeah, I think anybody, no matter the size of your investment, can stake and earn. There's nothing that prevents somebody from doing that. Okay. Now, I think if you are looking at investments just in general, and I think this goes to anything that you invest in, obviously the more you invest, the more potential return that you're going to have. And I use potential with a very big bolding and an underlining that, because you never know what markets are going to look like. You never know what you're going to see as a return, and you should never overinvest in something. I know you talked even before when we even jumped on here, gambling, right? In a casino, it is somewhat like that. You're taking your money and you're throwing it into something and hoping it turns into a 10x or a 20x. And I think a lot of people in this space do that. And I really urge people all the time to not. Okay. Think of it, if you're using this project or any project as a Hail Mary to save you out of something, you are looking at it in a very wrong way. I would rather have you go play at a blackjack table than try an investment. And even then, I don't want you playing at a blackjack table if you're looking for a Hail Mary, So it's very important to always know what your investment is, what you're willing to lose. Okay. And also, of course, looking at what you're willing to gain. Can I splurge 100 or 1,000? Or maybe I'm a real big whale and I can splurge 10,000 because I found oil, or 100,000. I found lots of oil, whatever it may be. And, that's something that you can sacrifice, fully knowing that you could lose every penny, or fully knowing that you could, 10x that investment. But no matter the size that you have, our goal is to provide income in a passive reward system for every single person here. When we create projects and create utilities, we don't go into it thinking, man, I can't wait for people to lose 115% on their investment here. It's not what we go in thinking. We want to see this, price go up. If maybe we take that $10 and we turn it into 20, it's not significant, but it's something still. You double it. Okay. That's honestly the mentality we go into, but we can never predict if it is going to do that. Will that happen? We can only control what we can control, which is the execution of things, which is the development of all of it, and to some extent marketing elements, right? But once it's out, once it's launched, and once people are trading it or using it or whatever it may be, it is out of our hands. But it's something where we are 100% looking to have everybody who's invested in benefiting from it in some way, shape, or form. Okay.
And see, that's one thing that's really important to me, because so many projects, they put an entry point into it. And a lot of people can't do that. In my Rags to Riches series, I'm just trying to get people to put $10 a week in, $15 a week. But you have these projects say, well, you have to buy in with a minimum of 500. It's like, that just shoots 80% of the people out of the water.
Right.
So that's one thing I like about Swych. So good job on that one. So let's go back into the December 4th, if we could, because there's a lot of questions about, for those who have done their research or watched my earlier video, about phase 1 to phase 2 transition. Now, of course, just a quick recap for people who don't know, phase 2 means that the taxes are going to stop, means the ATP is going to stop, and means the inflation is going to stop on the Swych token. That's kind of that fine line of phase 2. So did I cover that real quick correctly, guys?
Yeah, so we also look at like the transition into real yielding within phase 2 as well on that. And I'll expand more on that because it's this weird kind of grayish area on it.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's what I kind of want to get into. So now December 4th, that's when the Perpetual exchange launches. First of all, do we have a time of day that's going to occur?
There's no set time. We're just looking at December 4th. And I think a lot of it is, especially when we launched our decentralized exchange and when we got the token out there, it takes time for things to propagate, okay? Especially websites. For some of those to go online, to get across the world, it takes some time for that to go through. Now, it's going to be that day, but it could be, 1 a.m., it could be 2 p.m., it could be 7 p.m. I guarantee you it'll be closer probably to the midday. If anything, on something like that. It's just I don't have a set time for it. But the biggest thing is, because I've seen it before, is if you see it potentially in, let's say, the USA, sometimes it doesn't propagate in Asia for another hour because it's just the way websites work in some cases.
Okay. And that makes sense. And so I know people have asked this time and time again, and we've covered time and time, but we're going to cover it again just to make sure there's no misunderstanding. So on December 4th, is that when phase 2 is going to initiate and stop taxes and all that stuff?
So as of right now, we're looking at phase 2 being something that's after the launch of the Perpetual exchange. So December 4th would be the launch of the Perpetual exchange. Phase 2 would be after. And it was something that we really did have a lot of back and forth discussions on. And I'm 100% to dive deep into it and be fully open and transparent behind the entire reason behind it. So when we look at the Perpetual exchange, it's obviously a humongous release that we're doing. It's something that people have been building up and looking for quite some time. So a few of the biggest concerns were, one, are we going to have enough yield generation that we can constantly keep going with? Okay. 2, how does it look like from a marketing standpoint? And 3, okay, is everything ready to go 100% when transitioning into that phase 2? Now, when we look at it from a real yield generation, some back and forth discussions happened about using the Treasury funds as a way of supplementing until, we see the real yield come in. But our biggest concern was, what if we're starting to say that our real yield percentage is 30% and we're actually only making an income that would get us 4%? So now we start off these couple weeks with people thinking that they're getting 30%. And then all of a sudden we transition into the 3% and people go, whoa, you just bait and switched us. So that's the biggest concern we had there. The other thing was that, when we look at real yield just in general, we want to be able to see, okay, of course, too, as, with this real yield generation, are we going to be able to keep this going constantly without any issues? How are we going to divvy this up properly? Do we have enough liquidity? Is the fee splitting properly the right way? Or do we need to take more of the fee and cut it to liquidity? Or we put too much to liquidity and cut more to the rewards? So we want to give more like a first, couple weeks to just get a good analysis of everything. Okay, just to see where things are. Now, I'm always somebody who would rather overestimate than underestimate. And when I overestimate a lot. And that's why I say 30 to 60 days as far as phase 2, which is, of course, disheartening to a lot of people who have been waiting for it. And rightfully so. I'm not going to be somebody who disagrees on that. But it's also something where we would hate for it to be, it's going to be a week, and then it's actually going to be 2 weeks. It's actually going to be 3 weeks, and then just keep bumping and bumping and bumping and bumping. So we wanted to make sure that we give ourselves a good amount of time. Now, we're fully aware that with that mentality of kicking the can down the road, it's not what everybody wants, but it's something we want to do for not just real yield reasons. We're also looking at it from a marketing standpoint. You know, there's a lot of people who realize our protocol right now has a shallow liquidity pool by design, so that, you know, you can see bigger buys, create bigger, you know, uptrends. Okay. But of course, that means smaller sells also take a deeper bite, you know, and if you're doing that on the exact same day as a major launch, let's say you have a bunch of people who do want to exit out of the protocol, okay, whether it's a few or a ton, all right, that does not look great from from a marketing, you know, viewpoint on that, especially for a perpetual. Oh wow, they just launched their project and they're down 70%. You know, now the good news is, okay, we're fully prepared for things like that happening, and we're aware that people are going to want to sell out. They want to take money out. And we know with a lower liquidity pool, it's going to impact harder. And that's why we have, you know, this idea of buyback burns and injecting into the liquidity pool. But to see a trend that goes down almost immediately after a launch, okay, it's going to happen when you release those types of things. It just doesn't look good from a marketing standpoint. So we'd rather build up on that element, you know, first a little bit more as well. The final thing we looked at was really just, is everything ready and in position for phase 2? And we went back and forth about doing this migration side of things. And that's kind of what I touched on earlier. And with that, we were looking at, hey, CoinMarketCap doesn't like proxy contracts. And we have a proxy contract right now, which means that we can adjust the taxes down to 0. We can take the transfer fees off, which is great. But okay, a lot of websites don't like it because it means that you can just adjust things. Why can you just adjust things? And rightfully so. We understand, you know. So we would be looking to, of course, you know, move it into a different contract. Okay, potentially switch it to something like that, take off all the fees. Then potentially looking at getting it audited by a company, just so that people feel nice and secure. The thing with a standard BEP20 token is it's the exact same type of contract code you would see on any other BEP20 token. So, you know, things like that are just like, do we go that route? You know, but we looked at like this proxy contract. We had it in play, okay, when we launched everything, just so we could have a few different adjustable elements. But we're kind of like, do we want to keep it just for the sake of security, transparency, for our community members, moving that off to just a standard contract, okay? So that's what we're looking at there. That's what we're looking at from the readiness point of view. We're also looking at, are we ready? Have we done the math to calculate the proper amount of buybacks, the, you know, proper amount to inject in liquidity? How often should it be done? Things like that, you know, and we've talked about this for months at end, but just making sure everything's ready to go. I think a lot of it comes down to, though, and really the main reasons are, we want to make sure that the real yield is sustainable and constant, okay, without us having to rely on just the Treasury to get people to come on board. And also, of course, making sure from a marketing standpoint, everything looks good with that as well. So when we're talking, of course, the sustainability wise, I just want to dive in that ever so slightly more, because I'm sure people are going to ask, why don't you guys just supplement the Treasury? Why don't you just do that? Doesn't make sense. And I think it is, if we have more people who stake and stake and stake, and we continue to have it at this, you know, 20-30% that we're sustaining out of the Treasury, that can drain very, very quickly, to the point that we don't have the income and the project's bleeding internally, because we're trying to give people something that we don't have. So we want to see how things are going first. Could the Treasury be used as boost? 100%. I see no doubt. I see us for sure doing that at some point. We just want to see, again, initially, where are things landing before we start throwing money frivolously at everything and hoping for the best.
Okay. No, and that makes sense. And that's one of the things about phase 2 is that it's going to stop the inflationary aspect of the Swych token. Now, let me ask you, what kind of mechanisms do you have in place to make it deflationary? Are there going to be buybacks and burns, or what is in the works moving forward to reduce the quantity of Swych?
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, we, of course, have the buyback and burn element of things. We've also done quite a few buybacks that are just standing by to do burns. So tokens there. Like I was talking about with the NFT elements, purchasing some of those, maybe with Swych tokens, and then those get burned out thanks to your purchase. So things like that, okay, can definitely happen to help reduce that supply. We're also looking at like other games maybe or use cases. We talked about the lottery as being a way to maybe burning tokens while also having a chance at earning a huge prize. The lottery itself is something new that we'll be introducing and hoping to make the biggest lottery in DeFi. Okay. Which would be very, very cool and very exciting for something like that. But, you know, when we're talking all of that, I think the biggest factor of deflation is a set supply. You know, we're not minting anymore. There's no more. So anything that doesn't, you know, if we're burning anything, it's gone. It's done. It's over, you know. So when you just take that into consideration, okay, you're already stopping inflation right there. And anything that happens after is just a deflationary element. It's going to help the price significantly. It's going to, you know, make that supply and demand element take into effect. And then for investors who are coming in, they're going to have to buy higher. And for investors who are holding on, they might see a boost there. That, I think, is the biggest deflationary element, is knowing that there's no more inflation, you know?
Yeah, I think...
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, just to add, I think that's probably one of the most important things is that the inflation will stop, right? Whether it's deflationary or not, we know that there's going to be a supply cap. We know that there can't be any more than X amount of tokens staked trying to earn real yields. You know, if the real yields are based on the amount of tokens staked, we know that that's not going to continue to increase unless people were to buy tokens from the LP to then stake and increase that stake supply, right? But it's not going to be from anything minted. They would actually have to, if they want to obtain more, they're going to have to do it through the LP. Which I saw some comments in chat just to touch on. Yeah, burning, just burning tokens does decrease the overall supply. It doesn't really have any direct effect on price. If buying back tokens from the LP and then burning those does have an effect on price, but it's the buying back action that has the effect, not the burning. But, at the end of the day, the less tokens that are out there, whether it's in the LP or whatnot, that's less tokens that can be staked. Again, like Summit said, the biggest aspect is that we're not going to be minting anymore. And if you want more tokens, it's going to have to come through the LP.
Perfect. Okay. And yeah, I'm watching the chat go by and it's like, man, do I bring it up? Do I not? So if you guys see anything you want to comment on, please just toss it out there at any point in time.
Yeah, I'm seeing a few here and there, but yeah, it's, it seems like some of them are being answered in chat there. So
yeah,
perfect. We get a pretty solid community, and Cyril, BTK, love those guys, smarter than a whip, and so yeah, so I love the fact they always show up and they always try to answer questions and anything. But if there's anything you guys want to comment in, please just interrupt at any point in time and take us that direction. Yeah,
like with full transparency, and I think that's one thing we're proud of is. I think, is it Cyril had mentioned, yes, that burning does not have a direct effect on price, the whole supply and demand aspect. It can indirectly, and over time, it certainly, most likely will, if the demand outweighs the supply. But the only thing that does have a direct effect on price is, the purchase of tokens in the LP. And as Summit said, that's part of our phase 2 plan, is to, have some of those buybacks and burns through the LP, where the buyback action does have an direct effect on price, and then the burning action has a direct effect on the actual overall supply. So
right.
Got it. Okay. And so no, I'm glad you clarified that, and that helps to answer any questions if anybody has them. Now, real quick, you guys have mentioned the lottery a couple different times, and I know that's been something that's kind of been stagnant currently on the Switch website. Tell us about what it's going to look like. What's going to be moving forward?
Yeah, so lottery is currently paused, I guess you could say, on there at the moment as we reevaluate how we want it to be and how we want it to work with everything in our ecosystem here. So we're talking the lottery. I mean, I think lotteries are self-explanatory. You got a big pot, you want a part of the pot, okay, or you want the whole pot. So it's really what it is there. Now, one element that we had with the Switch lottery that was exciting was that anybody that purchased a lottery ticket would then get forever rewards from the lottery, which was really, really cool. So anybody then who purchased a ticket after them would also get rewards. And as great as that was, it was to the point where, well, if everybody buys a ticket, then then how much in rewards am I getting? Am I getting a half a penny off of something? So it very quickly diluted to the point that nobody was really getting rewards. And it's just not something that we like to see. So we're adjusting the lottery a little bit, where it's not every single person who then, going forward buys a ticket gets a reward. It would be people who are, invested. Maybe you're holding tokens or holding an NFT, you get rewards at that point there. So it rewards people for investing into, the protocol as a whole. Now, when we're talking the lottery just in general, we're looking to also increase that lottery pool significantly. And for two reasons. One is, everybody, everybody likes a good lottery. Okay. I will say that, people always be, well, who's going to play a lottery? I think lots of people play lotteries. Okay. You see it happen in the United States and Europe and everywhere. And, for it to come to the crypto space is something that it's going to happen. People are going to want to win crypto as a form of lottery. So being able to see, I can win on this and watch that jackpot go up and up and up. It's cool. Maybe I'll just toss, hey, I got real yield. I'll buy a ticket and see if I can get something out of it. And just like any other lottery, you don't have to win the grand prize to win. Okay. You can win a smaller prize, maybe win your money back or a couple $100 here and there. And that's always a benefit there. And part of what we collect with, these utilities in the Perpetual exchange is, a portion of those fees might also go into boosting up the lottery as well. Maybe we collected $100 fee and, $15 or $10 goes in the lottery. And that happens, constantly. Now that lottery is at, $3.6 million and people are like, oh, well, maybe I'll throw in a few tickets, and just watching that, just have like a background. Okay. Is something cool, something unique. All right. Just to have as an additional form of utility. And then of course, bringing in like a burning element to it. Maybe you can then take some of your tokens and burn them in exchange for a ticket. Okay. Which I don't know if you want to do that. Okay. Especially when we go into a deflationary phase, but all right. If you don't want to spend, your cold hard cash, you can, maybe do something like that. So it's something that we wanted. Yeah. Go on.
I would say that brings in maybe the gamification a little bit, right? Do you want to throw in some Swych tokens and give up some of that real yield in order to get some lottery tickets, or do you want to hang on to them to get that real yield? So yeah.
Yeah. So it's different ways, and I think it's important that when we look at the lottery, it could be very big. It also could just be a side element. But it's something that we want to expand on, because I myself have also seen lotteries be very big. I've seen lotteries gather lots of attention. And more importantly, lotteries are a humongous marketing element, right? When you can go out there and say, have a chance at winning $500,000 or $1 million, not a lot of places can say that. Now, remember, it's a lottery. The odds of winning are very low, but the way I always put it is somebody will always win. Eventually it will happen. You see it in real life. The lottery gets to $1 billion or something dollars and you're like, well, who's going to win that? What are the odds? Somebody will win. It will happen. It'll take time, but it will happen. Okay. And when it does, and that first winner walks away with, $1 million or so dollars, they go, oh my God, somebody actually won it. And that's what I would love to see. I want to see somebody win that jackpot, because it's even better for us then, right? And now people can see you can win this. Oh my God, and that's exciting. Now, I really do hope that if we were to come out and we have a $3 million jackpot and somebody doesn't win on the first day, that would be a little bit of a bummer. Right. Not for that person. That person would be happy as could be. But from a marketing and project standpoint, it'd be like, wow, we weren't really anticipating that. But it could happen. It very much could happen. But the idea is just to have another element, something else for people to utilize and use and have fun with and dream a little bit. I think, as much as I say the element of knowing your investment and knowing where your risk management is, there's always something fun about just dreaming, about just thinking, what if I was debt free? What if I had this car? What if I could go to this tropical vacation? And that's worth everything. And just having that 5 minutes before you see the ticket numbers get drawn and just having that dream while you do it is a lot. It's exciting. It's I see people in the comments saying like, it's how the human mind operates. We all operate that exact same way, that it could be me idea. And I think that's something we don't want to I don't want to use the word capitalize off because it's such a bad word to use, but okay, get people excited around, bring some more attention to something and keep that fun and excitement level within the crypto space.
Absolutely. And now the lottery is not just going to have a $1 grand prize and nothing else, right? It's going to have different tiers to where you may not win the jackpot, but you're just still win something as possibility, right?
100%. It's kind of similar to lotteries, around the world, right? You got that grand prize, you got the runner up. Maybe you match 2 numbers and you win $5-10. Okay, you match 3, you win a couple hundred, stuff like that. Okay. So that's very much can happen. And we've actually seen it previously in the lottery we have now. I saw somebody, I think the most numbers I ever saw was 3 or 4 numbers, and they won a nice chunk out of that. Of course, it's not the grand prize, but it happens. And that's really awesome to see that happen. Some people, they bought hundreds of tickets to get that, and some people bought 3. So it can happen. You could be that person. But you don't have to just bank on the fact that I have to win the grand prize. But the coolest part about it, I think, is that if you're already invested too, and somebody buys a ticket, every investor in the protocol is also getting a portion of that. A portion, of course, is going to the lottery so that it continues building. A very small portion is going to the project itself. So, we can continue developing, and so that, Mike and I can feed our families when we wake up in the morning. And then a portion goes out to the investors, people who put their money and faith and trust in this project, so that, they can see a return that comes out of it too, which I think is really awesome. Unlike a traditional lottery where you're just buying a ticket in the hope of winning, if you're invested in it and a bunch of people are buying tickets, then everybody's winning,
Exactly. And that makes sense. And so that brings up a question, like we're talking gamification within the ecosystem. Now, one thing I was going to ask on the PDEX is I'm seeing a lot of these exchanges things, they're doing this up and down thing. Is Swych going to have any type of gamification on the PDEX where it has just up for the next 15 minutes or down? Is something like that going to be introduced, or maybe down the road?
I don't know if it's something we would introduce to the PDEX, at least initially. It could be something we see in the future. If anything, I think we're looking more towards trading leaderboards and competitions type of stuff, rather than gamification elements on the PDEX. So maybe it's whoever has the highest trades within a certain time frame will get a nice prize, or whoever does the most trades, or whoever makes the best returns, things like that. Okay, and I guess in a sense it's a game, but it's not a game, right? I just don't know if it would be exactly what you're talking about, though.
Okay. Yeah, that's basically what you're describing. I've seen some centralized exchanges doing something similar to that. Right. From traditional finance, it's more of like a binary option type of investment. There's options, and then there's binary options where you're saying, is it up or is it down in this time frame? Just like you described. So that that would be like a whole, in my opinion, that would be like a whole separate type of investment or type of way to trade than the perpetual exchange would offer. I don't think it's something to rule out 100% in the future, but it is something fairly new to crypto. I've seen it's somewhat popular in traditional, but far less popular than traditional options or something like that. So.
Okay. And now what really made me switch gears on that, Mike, and maybe you can express this a little bit better. To me, that's more of a gamble. You really don't have to understand trading or anything like that. It's like, oh, what? It went down, so it's going to go up now. It seems much more like it's trying to hook in the gamblers versus trying to educate the people how to properly trade. Is that an accurate assessment, or how do you feel about it?
I would probably say it's more. Yeah, I would agree more yes with that than no, because when you're putting a time constraint on something, you're looking at more of like an option contract where you're specifying a certain price by a certain date or time. Now, obviously, you can buy or sell in that within that time period still and not hold it till expiration. But you are in essence saying, I think it will do this by this given time period. And yeah, that's a bit more of a gamble than saying, based on my technical analysis, I think my educated guess is that Bitcoin will go to this price, but you're not putting a time frame on it, right? So yeah, you're adding a level of additional, you can call it risk or gamble to that when you do put time constraints on it.
Okay. And yeah, I was just kind of curious because we're talking lottery, we're talking perpetual exchanges. I mean, really, Switch is going to be introducing a lot of different things for a lot of different type of investing styles. Sorry, I just fell off the bus.
No, you're fine. Yeah. I think
You're good.
I think from it's certainly from a gamification standpoint. It's, I guess you could classify it as that, but I would put it more in when you're looking at like a binary option like that, you're more looking at especially in crypto, a more gamble than a gamification aspect of it. But
yeah. And I think that, just quickly add on stuff like that, I think what we're really trying to do is like you said, give different options to every person who's visiting, right? Not just buying a token, not just trading, not just doing a lottery, different options, right? I think when Titano was very early on, and I joked with you about this, I think when we had our call, it was known, every utility we came out with, everybody's like, well, that's just gambling. You guys are just constantly coming out with everything gambling, And so we were kind of like, all right, we're going to come out with something else now. I swear, guys, So we went this DEX route and the perp DEX route and stuff like that. And then, of course, though gambling is also a really big side. If you really think about it, everything in life is gambling, right? Everything that you do. You walk out of your house, you don't know if a comet is going to hit you on the side of the head. Everything in life is gambling. But, okay, we also want to recognize that there's things that are a lot less gambling, like trading, like, swapping certain things, so like a game, stuff like that. Okay. So we really want to create as much as we can for every type of investor. It just takes time. It takes a lot of time for things like that to happen. It takes, even more importantly, a lot of money. I think a lot of people look at what we have in our war chest, and it's roughly, I know now BNB has kind of been a little weird, and that's a lot of what we have in funds, but around $9-10 million. And people look in there go like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. And I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. It's not something that can fund a blockchain. It's not something that can fund these, mega corporations. So these types of funds can get burned through very quickly when you start introducing perpetual exchanges, when you start introducing, heavy marketing elements. And so, we want to pick out utilities that we see as something that's beneficial to investors and beneficial for, the continued growth of everything that we do. And I think this is where we're at right now. We look at with the perpetual exchange, we look at the lottery, we look at the NFTs and say, hey, these are 3 areas of the crypto space that all approach different investors, all bring somebody new in. Then, of course, just the standard token element. Everybody likes a good token. Everybody likes something like that. So that's just, I guess you could say four spaces, areas there. Okay. And you have something for everybody. It's not just, I have to go into a trading, I have to buy an NFT. Maybe I want to play on the lottery, or maybe I want to, go ahead and play or buy some tokens and stake and earn. It's a little bit for everyone.
I agree. And that's one thing I like there. And now I just saw a question come by, Cyril, does Switch have a DEX? And of course, that's what we're talking December 4th. That's when the perpetual exchange is going to launch.
Yeah.
Now,
so
let me ask.
Go on. I'm sorry. My bad. No, you're
it might go into yours. I was just going to ask, what tokens are going to be tradable on that perpetual exchange on December 4th?
Yeah, so when we're looking at getting these tokens out on the perpetual exchange, we're looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum as our main pairs, and then BNB as well on that. Preferably, everything blue chip. We're not looking to do Switch as a perpetual coin listed on the perpetual exchange. I know people have asked that. It's not how that works. But that's what we'd be looking like on the perp DEX. However, we also do just have a standard DEX, right? So people can just do standard trading between, Switch tokens. You could convert your BNB to USDT, things like that. And we plan to expand on that more as well. So with the decentralized exchange that we just have in general, it's primarily, again, those bigger tokens, the USDT, the BNB, things like that. But we really want to, in the future, once we get through some of these developments, look towards maybe getting other projects listed. I know we talked about launchpad, incubation, things like this. So, those are elements that we are looking to expand and go forward with as well. But again, it's something that takes time, takes money. And when we look at what is the best, return that we can bring for investors, it's going to be the Perpetual exchange. So our focus is really on that element right now. And then we are kind of going to wrap back around to the decentralized exchange side of things. So, if people are wanting to know the difference between the two, sometimes it gets confusing. When you're thinking of a DEX, you're thinking of Uniswap. You're thinking of Pancake Swap, things like that. When you're thinking of a Perpetual DEX or a PDEX, okay, you're thinking of MUX, GMX, Level, things like those. Okay, so two different things, but they also achieve similar things. I think when we looked at the PDEX and we really looked at the DEX in general, we obviously want to go to a cross-chain element on both, so not just the Binance Smart Chain, but we primarily are on the Binance Smart Chain just because of our long history, with the token here and how our community is kind of built off of the Binance Smart Chain. Some people are primarily traders on here, so jumping over to Polygon, jumping over to Avalanche, different things like that, you're having to bring people over and rebuild that trust and faith on people on those chains, which takes time. I think we have spoken with, quite a few different cross-chain companies to see of possibilities and see how they can help us. And it's definitely something we're looking to expand on in the near future, but it's not something we're looking to do out of the gate. I know I've been in talks with Binance directly, even some of the BNB chain teams there. And they've been very supportive and very helpful of the project to see how they can help us. And that was something cool to talk with them about, to see how they can market and support us. And maybe we'll see a deeper partnership with the BNB chain organization as a whole in the future as well.
Yeah, to add on just real quick, cross chain is great. From a swap deck side, and also from a perp deck side. However, like Summit said, we've been on the BNB Smart Chain for a while now, in talks, with some additional things with them and whatnot. But the other thing that a lot of people often forget when you go cross chain like that, especially on a Perpetual exchange, is you need to add liquidity to the other pairs that are on the other chains as well, right? So you need liquidity on, for example, the ETH USDT pair on BNB, but then you also need liquidity for the AVAX USDT pair on Avalanche. So it takes money to add liquidity to those pairs, and stuff like that can come with time as well. But right now we've got, as Summit said, we got $9.5-10 million, which again sounds like a lot of money, but when you're talking DeFi, we've got a lot of room to grow with that. So
exactly, and it does cost a lot. And a lot of people don't realize that hey, you've got to pay for the servers, developers, all this time. It's just like any business; it costs money to make money. It really does. So
sure,
and that's one thing that I know people in different communities have said. It's like, well, when Titano shut down, there was a lot of money that wasn't put right back into the Swych liquidity pool. And is that what we're discussing as the war chest here that's setting aside to be used at a later time?
I'm sorry. I didn't know whose answer that was.
It wasn't asked very well. I'm sorry. I'm still fighting the cold, guys. Sorry. My brain's trying to keep up.
No, you're good. One more time. I'm sorry.
I was catching something in chat. I apologize, Serenity.
Yeah, you're totally good, guys. So one of the fun things that I've caught in communities over the last couple of years is that once Titano went to Swych and all this occurred, not all the liquidity was put, or not all the money coming out of Titano was put right back into Swych. And that's been one of the FUD people comments that I've talked about. Now, is that what you were referencing back to the 10 million roughly that's sitting on the sidelines ready to be utilized?
Yes. So when we switched over to Swych, we talked about, not putting all the liquidity on there just at the very start and the reason for it. And a lot of it was just, we wanted to, because we had this ATB system in effect, we don't need to necessarily do all these buybacks right out the gate, okay, that are much more significant. We could do lower buybacks and have a better effect and then save more of that liquidity for when the ATB goes away. It was kind of like a strategic planning that went with it, just based on the tokenomics that we had in play and what we foresaw coming in the future on that. Now that money is put aside. We of course brought in the Unico project and welcomed them into the Swych family, and so some of their funds came to us as well. And then of course we had the LP from Titano that was put to the side again as well. So some of those funds are offsetting to the side. But yeah, a lot of those funds are there. Now, of course, we have funds that are in, our own native token, which we may be using as, hey, we might get rid of them, we might burn them, we might keep them to the side, might give them for reward, might throw them back. Different options that can go from there. But a lot of the money too is put to the side for the project. I think I shared in an announcement, we recently diversified our treasury to a portion of it in Bitcoin, which with everything happening right now, I think was a great move, especially with everything going on with BNB. BNB, we still have a large chunk in there. We've staked other funds to earn yield off of that. Some of it's just sitting idly by and USDT fund, things like that, so we have kind of diversified in different areas. It was a huge thing that people asked about is, why aren't you guys putting it to work? And they were kind of finally like, all right, yeah, well, now we see some, ETFs that are going on. Maybe we'll move some funds around a little bit, see if we can capitalize some of that stuff there. But yeah, super exciting stuff with that. How much everything we will see, I can't really disclose because I, one, don't know what the amounts of everything will be, but two, I don't want to say how much a buyback would be because we've done that in the past. We did it where we had this buyback counter and we had it so that it counted down from, every 24 hours or 72 hours, and people timed it and it was terrible. It completely ruined the point. So I don't like talking about that. We used to share the buyback wallet so people could see how much was in funds. But then the people, looked at, okay, cool, that's how much I know is going in there, so I can base it off of that. Everybody will time it, and there's people who like to see it just to know where those funds are at. And you will find those wallets. They are out there. They are public, but we also don't broadcast them so people can estimate how much is going to go into here, or estimate or time when it's going to happen so they can get the most out of it. People who are going to sell, and we encourage you to sell when you want to sell. But we also know that people who are here to stick around, we don't want them to get hurt, so we encourage people who want to buy in, maybe you get lucky when the price is down, rather than when the price is up. So we don't want to play games with the buyback burns, but we also have to realize that people are going to time those, and those funds can just, rather than being a buyback burn, it's just burning the money,
It doesn't do any good, especially if they're timing. They've already got their sell screen open. They're just waiting, like, okay, ready, ready, go. It's like, it didn't do any good.
Yep.
Yeah, we want to be able to provide, liquidity in the LP for people who want to sell, to be able to sell, but we also want, to be able to protect the people that want to stay, so, there's again, there's no fail-proof way to do anything in life, but there's ways to try to, manage it the best you can, so that's what our plan is as well.
Absolutely. And now that brought up a great question somebody asked earlier, and I know I've asked this question before. So of course, Swych, Titano, called together, has been around for over 2 years now. Now, you guys have one of the strongest, longest lasting communities out there. And somebody had mentioned earlier, so for the early investors into Swych who got into this, what kind of perks can they expect moving forward? Because you're going to have the people, once the phase 2 hits, they just cash out and they run away. The ones that stick with it, that keep going, what can they expect to see for a perk for being a long-term investor?
Yeah, I think that's where we look at those high stake NFTs and how we're going to expand on that type of stuff. So the details are not all out on that yet, because that's going to be something that happens after the Perpetual exchange. So we're figuring out the logistics on it. But it is also very difficult to determine like who is a long-term holder and who isn't, right? If I were to say a long-term holder is anybody that bought before January 1st, 2022, what if you bought on January 2nd? How do you feel about that? You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that warranty. You go in and you're 3 days past your warranty and now it costs $8,000 to get your car fixed. Like, what? It's only 3 days. But, well, hey, you're 3 days. That's where it is. So we have to be very careful on how we determine who's who. We also have to make sure that, although it's great for people who have been here, there's also a fine line to tread where you shouldn't be rewarded for just being here. You should also be rewarded by selling your tokens and taking profit when you want to take profit. I love people who have been here for the longest, but it's almost like we're saying, good job on not, selling anything and just following everything we do, which I love our community. I'm so grateful for them. But I also want you guys to take some money. That's what we're here for. We want you to take some money, take some profit out here and there. So it's also, it's rewarding a mentality of just buying and hold. And then, that money goes down all the time. So we want people to, of course, take out that passive income, but it's difficult to say what a cutoff date looks like, how we would be rewarding people. Is it going to be based off of maybe your holding size? Because what about the person who maybe just sold everything 3 days ago and now this just gets announced that, a long-term holder reward is coming tomorrow, but they've been with us since the beginning and they had to sell it because their mother was in a hospital and they need to pay their medical bills. It's just, there's so many what ifs. You get really into this nitty gritty. Nobody's going to be happy no matter what we do or how we do it. I already know it. But we're really looking for a fine balance. We want to give something back to everybody, but we also want to make sure that it doesn't, really give too much of an advantage to anybody who's buying after, because that's not fair for people who invest in the protocol after. We also want it to not be so insignificant that it's just like, all right, cool. We want it to have some type of value to it.
And that makes sense. And then, you throw up the thing, what about the people who are just scraping $5 a week together and they don't have the large amount to buy into the high stakes or something like that? And so, like you said, there's no way to make everybody happy. It's pretty much impossible. Unless it's like anybody before phase 2, you're an early investor. There you go. Even then, somebody's going to be unhappy. They're like, man, I didn't hear about it.
I was here since the Titano days. What do you mean? Everybody's an early investor, but it's just, it will happen regardless. It will happen regardless.
There's no way to do it. So that's going to be an interesting challenge. And I'm curious how you guys are going to do that. And I know I had one other thing. What else? What else? So real quick, guys, I want to take a quick pause. We are going to have a giveaway because Mike and Summit have been so generous. We're going to do a giveaway here shortly. So stay tuned and you're going to have to put something in the chat and it's only available if you're actually here. But once again, I want to reference everybody. Down in the description are links to everything that we're talking about. The website, the white paper, the Discord. If we don't cover a question here, definitely jump in there and ask that.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm excited for our little giveaway too.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Hey, I just had a quick question. For I think it's Cyril in there. Mentioned something about looking at liquidity from outside the protocol. I'm assuming, and Cyril can reach out, but talking about some sort of liquidity aggregation, from other protocols and stuff. And that's obviously a possibility to do. Other protocols have done stuff like that. To gather liquidity from other chains and things like that to increase the liquidity. So I just want to say I think that's something we could certainly look at.
Okay. And Cyril's the one I do Regs to Riches on every Thursday. So I will absolutely set up a group right after this in Discord. Introducing the two of you to Cyril, and we'll put a group together and love to get in there and chat with you guys.
Sounds awesome. Thank you.
Sure. And so we had a couple questions here running through. So I'm going to put the link. Can I do this here? Hold on. Documentation. That's what I want. Somebody was asking about the white paper. So let me pull that up right here. And I'll put that in the chat, guys. Some may not be seeing it down below and they want a direct link. So there you go, guys. So I think I'm getting close to the end. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say maybe Summit wants to touch on it. There will be some updates to that white paper regarding phase 2 and the PDEX and all that.
So over this course of the week, we are going to see a overhaul to that. We're also going to see probably some overhaul to the Discord server as we start to merge some of our channels together, make things a little bit more streamlined, a little easier. There's nothing more I like than a more streamlined server and white paper. I hate going into a server and seeing 1,600 role titles, 1,500 channels, and no idea where I'm going. So I want to make it as easy as I can. But as far as the white paper, there's still some information in there that is prior to what is happening. So expect to see an update on that goes more in depth on fees, rewards, and kind of updates around everything phase 2 related as well.
Okay. And now, are those going to be released before December 4th, or is that going to be after the fact?
Before. So we'll see that before December 4th.
Cool. Okay. So I was just about to ask you guys, what have we not covered so far that I haven't just dove as deep as I could and torn apart? I've tried everything here.
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I feel like we've gone through a lot.
Yeah, I feel like Serenity's pulled a little bit more out of you. This conversation.
It took a little bit more from me.
Trying to. And as I was teasing you guys during the Pillars AMA, it's a personal competition I have with Mad Hatter. I love him to death. Those guys are amazing over there. But I always want to try and get just a little bit deeper than Mad Hatter did. And so I think it's great. I think it's fun. So, thank you guys for keeping up with it.
I think you also had a nice benefit of going after as well to piggyback on what Mad Hatter was able to pull out too. So I think you put yourself in a winning position.
Yeah, took the lead on that one. No, I think if anything that I want to say, it's really real quick is I think if you have questions, jump on our Discord. Please feel free to ask. We are not afraid of questions. I always ask people though, if you have questions, we only ask, just be respectful. Don't come in with your pitchfork, and if something you feel is off, I would rather hear it, and talk through it together. There have been tons, we've been around for 2 years, right? So there's tons of people who look into every single transaction we have. There's tons of people who look at and analyze our project to the very extent and the fullest. And sometimes, when people run away with things that aren't true or half baked, it hurts, and it hurts the project, hurts those communities. But if you hop in and there's ever anything that concerns you or questions or even suggestions, just to jump in. We're happy to listen to them. We're happy to answer those questions. We're happy to take those suggestions and move forward with them. That's what it's about. So it's exciting. I love people coming in here and roasting me in the chats, or Serenity, absolutely baking me in a hotter seat. But it's fun. I enjoy doing it. I think over chats like these, it's so much easier though, right? Because you can read tone, you can talk. When you go into text, it's so much harder. Like, I don't know, are you pissed at me or are you happy with me? I just don't know. So if you're ever reading into my messages or ever seeing it, this is my voice and this is how I talk. And if I make like a sarcastic sounding comment, it's because I'm trying to do it to be funny, not to be an asshole.
You got to add the smiley face emojis on it.
Yeah, I gotta start using more emojis, guys. I'm sorry.
There you go. And that's one thing I love about having these type of chats where it's face to face. Well, my face and your guys can't be. Is I can feel the conversation. It's not one of those like, wait, is that being rude or what are they asking? Because some questions can come out very derogatory, or they seem that way in text. Just like asking about liquidity pool or whatever. Some people might get very offensive at that, where I think any question can be asked with respect. And right. I have yet to find a question you guys are unwilling to answer. So thank you.
No, thank you so much. Seriously, I appreciate it. And I like that you ask us, questions that are not, walks, right? They make us think a little bit. And I think it helps the people who are looking to invest or already invested understand a little bit of what goes behind the scenes,
Absolutely. And so, guys, I want to switch gears on you. I think we've covered the majority, but I know there's questions out there. And we talked about there's a giveaway. So I'm going to switch gears up and mess everybody up. So first of all, we're going to start collecting names for the giveaway. To be involved in the giveaway, all you have to do is type in the chat right here, #switch. And then we'll spin the wheel. And whoever wins, what do they get, gentlemen?
You get $75 in USDT. Woohoo!
Woo-hoo! Okay, that's exciting right there. So that's what it's worth for just hanging around and learning about this. But now we're going to start the hot seat question and answer session. So this is where, guys, if you have questions that we haven't covered yet, please put them in the chat below, and we will dig into every one of those until we get everything answered that we can. And if something goes over 3 hours, okay, we might move that over to the Discord. We'll see how it goes.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
Okay. So the first thing is Wild Angel said, asked Serenity, I want a 60-second elevator pitch. Why should I get into Switch? Good question.
Oh my gosh. Is he
Go
actually want
Serenity.
60 seconds in an elevator pitch here? You got the Serenity. Yeah. We're tagging you in here.
He said your name. No.
I had no idea. I think there was more to get my attention. So, gentlemen, who would like to take that one?
Oh gosh, I know. All right, Mike, I'll do it. You got the next one.
Hey, go for it.
No, honestly speaking, I think if you're somebody who's looking to invest in Switch, you're really looking for an ecosystem investment. You're not just looking for one source of revenue. You're looking for, hey, I want to earn a passive income, but I also want more than just a token. I want to be able to trade. I want to be able to purchase an NFT. I want to learn how to trade. I want to have a community behind me. But more importantly, I think it has to fit with what you want, right? There are a lot of things that we offer, or at least going to be offering, but it also has to align with maybe your personal financial choices. If you're somebody who's like, I'm okay, and I want to jump in and, take $100 or a couple $100, maybe 10 or 20, stake it, see what I can get as a passive income, we might be the place for you. If you're somebody who's like, maybe I want to purchase an NFT that looks cool and also earn, or I want to jump in on a lottery and see if I can win, we might be the place for you. But if you're somebody who is, I want an auto rebasing token, or I want something where, my token gets diversified in 15 pools, it's probably not the place for you. So if you are looking to invest in Twitch, you're looking to invest in an ecosystem. You're realizing that it's not just based off of the token price, but everything that we're building is what you'd be earning off of. So the PDEX, the lottery, all of that passive income stream is what we're striving for. The token price is one element, but the passive income is the biggest thing we're looking to give.
Good answer. I like that. So anything you want to add to that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Summit said it best at the end there, is that, for many tokens out there, your value is reliant on the intrinsic value of the token itself, right? However, with Switch, by investing in Switch, not only are you holding value through the token price, but you're also going to be holding value or income from the different products that Switch provides that are generating revenue that can be paid, back to you in the form of yields.
Well said. Okay. And let's see. Sorry, I'm starting to read the chat through here. And yes, Sarah says, please, guys, hit the like button if you would. I appreciate that. And yes, you do have to like the video to win. So we'll go with that. That sounds good. So nobody else put another question. I got one for you guys. So with the latest news with CZ and how that's affecting Binance and stuff, where Switch is built on the Binance blockchain, what concerns do you guys have moving forward that this could affect?
Ooh, good question. I think, Mike, you and I, we both talked about this a little bit here. And the CZ and everything, Binance is separate from the BNB smart chain. Okay. So although they're the same in one aspect, they're not, right? Everybody correlates them with each other, but they're two separate entities. I personally, if we were going to see a huge, massive dump, it probably would have happened by now. It's not doing great. We've seen the price go down as far as BNB just in general. But it's not to the point where we're in the 140s, the 150s, the 160s, things like that. We're not seeing anything crazy. I personally believe that we will weather this storm just as everything else has in the crypto space. Binance Smart Chain is just too large of a chain for us to see it collapse over an entity that doesn't even control it. So I don't see that. I know there's been talks like, are we going to change the liquidity pool? How are we going to work with things like that? And the answer really is no. We don't have any intention of changing the liquidity pool right now. If we start to see trends where it starts to go down more or, significantly, we might switch it over into a stable coin. If we start to see things where the chain were to be like, we're seeing some off, putting on the whole Binance Smart Chain, we might look towards a different chain. But those discussions are just, we have them out of safety. I don't see them ever happening, at least in the foreseeable future. I could see us going cross-chain, but I can't see us abandoning Binance Smart Chain at any point.
And good answer. Anything you want to throw in there? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think to add on to that is that, there's certain things that sometimes you just have to, get past or move on from in order to move on to the future, right? So, and the fact that, with what happened with CZ and, the SEC and Binance and all that stuff, I think it could honestly be a blessing in disguise. And the fact that, hopefully, I guess we'll find out in a few weeks, once everything's, signed, sealed, and delivered, that maybe it's, it's done and we, everybody can finally move on. Some argue that there's, certain influencers such as BlackRock and others that may be, part of this. But, like Summit said, at the end of the day, it's a common misconception that, Binance is the BNB smart chain, and they're not. They're two separate entities, and while they may have, Binance was part of it forming and starting, it's run by the community and the validators. So they're the ones with the control and the decision making, and not the centralized exchange, which is Binance itself.
Well put. And yes, I think there's a very fine line distinction between the two, and people get them very confused. Like, oh man, CZ's going down, Binance Smart Chain is going to crash. It's horrible. It's really not. There is a distinction between the two, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah. It's just one of those things, educational type pieces, I guess. But over time, I think more and more will understand that, and BNB will move on from here.
Absolutely, I would agree on that. And so I'm waiting for more questions to come in, guys. If you have questions we haven't covered yet, throw them in the chat right now because it's time to do it. So the next question, guys, is of course December 4th is when the PDEX launches. What do we need to do to prepare? Is there anything special somebody has to do if they're already in Switch, or what's the best thing we have to do to get ready for that launch?
Yeah, I mean, with something like that, we would share the link once everything is live, and you'd be able to access it almost immediately. There really isn't anything you'll have to do. I will say, though, that, we ask our community just to throw some excitement in the chats, let people know, share it out that launch is happening. I always tell people not to tell people, just just put out a tweet that says buy now and FOMO in. But, but maybe like, hey, the Switch Perp Dex is coming out on December 4th. Check it out. Maybe make some awareness, because our community is our biggest marketing element. It's treading that fine line, right? Of using your community to help bolster and share out your project without having them just try and create FOMO, so I always ask my community and everybody, and I think everybody's really good with this in here, is, share out if you're passionate, maybe make content, write an article or a video if you're somebody who likes that type of stuff, and if you want to do it, of course, but never tell somebody to just blindly jump into it. Bring awareness to it, but let them make the decision if they want to be part of it.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I'm really big about. It's just like I did the teaser video before, where the Switch token did a 3x. And I'm not going to lie, I got into it. I made some profits. I cashed some out, and then I put some back in. Like, okay.
Yep.
I think it's great. But yes, never, ever just blindly get into it. And guys, the excitement you see from me, this is genuine. I don't know how to be anything other than me. So if somebody says, well, you're too excited, you're pushing too much, well, that's just me. That's why it says right at the bottom, do your own research. Because, yeah, I can't be anything other than me. But all the links are in the video description down below. And yes, you guys will probably even notice at the very bottom is a referral link. It's something you decide to get into and you want to support the channel. Great. You know what? I'm not pushing it. I'm not even telling people it's there. So it's all now. But the biggest thing is, don't listen to me. Don't listen to these guys. Do your own research and don't listen to anybody else. Because in the end, in DeFi, you're absolutely 100% accountable for what you decide. So do your research, decide if it's right for you. Okay. And so we had another question roll through. I lost it. There it is. So the cafe guy, what ATB referrals on phase 2 will they be there?
Yes. Hey, Cafe. How's it going?
It's Steve Cafe.
So as far as referrals go, phase 2, because we're not going to be minting tokens anymore, doesn't have that referral element. We are looking to add a referral element to the project, but it's probably not something that will happen right out of the gates. It'll be something that happens a little bit down the line. For now, though, you'll be able to continue getting those referral bonuses. So Serenity, there you go. You got your link. You're ready to go. And take it while you can, and enjoy it while you can. Once we transition into that phase 2, though, it might be something where if you're able to bring people into maybe the perp decks, not necessarily investing, but maybe they make their first trade. That could be something. It could be something where maybe, you refer them to checking out the lottery and purchasing a ticket. That could be something right there. Or it could be purchasing tokens and staking still. We haven't really defined it yet. It's a little bit harder because we can't give you referral token rewards anymore. So now it's real yield, and it's where is that reward coming from? Are we now sacrificing a portion of our PDEX rewards or utility rewards to do referrals? And if so, what is the percentage of that going to be? So it's just a balancing act that we have to make sure.
Okay. Anything, Mike?
No, yeah, that's okay. Someone nailed it. Yeah. It's
okay.
Yep.
I like it. And so one question I had, I think I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just to make sure it's transparent. So on a lot of PDEXs, of course, some people want to copy trade other people. Is that in any way going to be a functionality on the PDEX coming forward?
As far as copying trades, no, we're really looking to avoid stuff like that. We don't like the idea of people following other people in order to make a trade happen. Now, here's the thing. If you follow enough and you go out of your way to follow somebody's trades, you're going to follow somebody's trades. But we won't have an element that's specifically designed to do that.
Excellent. That's where it's really about the education and learning to trade for yourself. It's kind of like the whole fishing analogy. Give somebody a fish they eat for a day and teach them how to fish they eat for life. Same kind of game.
Yep.
Well said. And let's see, a certain volume fee. Going into phase 2, I have to admit 30, 60 days is a long time. Ask us to wait.
Yeah, it's a very valid question. I think I've said it before, and I'll say it again, is, when we looked at phase 2, when we came out with the project initially, we had a set time frame of how we wanted phase 2 to come out, right? And it has taken longer than expected. And a lot of that has been because we wanted to create utility that we can make sure gives rewards, make sure it gives backing, make sure it gives people a reason to stay with Switch. It's taken a long time to build this perpetual exchange, a lot of testing, a lot's gone into it. In order to get us to the point we are, we've gone through a lot of market trends, pivots, things like that in order to get here. I think I speak on behalf of the founders when I do apologize for the time it's taken. I think it's a lot to ask for the patience of everybody here who's been waiting for this phase 2. But it's something that, we really want to make sure is ironed out and good to go before we launch it. We want to make sure we're giving those real yield rewards and everything is set on that. Now, is there a set amount that we're looking for? We're really looking to be able to provide at minimum of about 10%. That's really what we're looking for. Now, we also want to make sure that it's not just we're getting to 10%, kind of like you said, because it's new, right? We don't want it to just be like, oh, we're only generating this because it's new. We want to make sure that we are generating at least 10% that we can give back to holders yearly, right? Or that percentage right there without a problem. Now, could that be something where 30 to 60 days, it takes to 60 days for us to really find a good analysis on that? Yeah. Could it be something where in 1 week, we just generated so many fees that we're pretty confident with what we're looking at? Yeah, it could be either one. But I think at the very bare minimum, we're looking at a week. But because I don't like saying a week, that's why I say 30 to 60. And that's why the founders have said 30 to 60. I'm kind of relaying, again, what they have come to the conclusion. But they are also fully aware that if we are looking at good fee volume generation within those first couple weeks, we are 100% just moving to that next phase and getting it into phase 2 right away. I think with ATB and all of that, when we look at phase 2 in general, whatever fees we're generating from now into phase 2 would still be something that you'd get. Okay. So if we're earning money right now, and let's say it takes 60 days. Okay. And again, I'm not saying it will, again, just for the sake of everything here. I feel like I always have to say that to be safe here. And let's say it takes 60 days. The fees that we have gotten over those 60 days would then be paid out. Okay. Maybe if we were to say, okay, well, because we've done the calculations and we would hit 20%, the fees that we have generated over the 60 days allows us to see 30 or 40%, for the first couple weeks of everything coming out. So you still make it back. Okay. It's just not happening during that 30 to 60 day period because we wanted to do this, the calculations, the analysis, and we would very clearly tell people that you would be seeing a boost, okay, initially because of the fees that we've been holding on to. But all right. The other major thing is, it's really about, I think, people selling out on ATB, transfer fees, stuff like that people are really more looking forward to. And we've come to this back and forth of potentially maybe increasing the ATB amounts. So instead of 2 to 20, maybe we're 5 and 50, and then it goes up to 7 and 70, and then, 10 and 100, whatever it may be on something like that, just so, you could take out a little bit more. That's always been a possibility as well, just so we tier our way gradually. Other things we talked about as well when we talk about that 30 to 60 days, maybe we use some of those funds to do buyback burns as well. If we're also holding on to some of it for real yields, we could be using a portion of those funds towards doing buyback burns on the token. Of course, they would be much better when you go into phase 2, when you have a supply that's defined on that rather than, minting. But that's always been a discussion that we've had as well. So I guess my over convoluted answer of your question here, to dumb it down into one sentence, is our goal is, 10%. Once we can see that we're able to sustain that at a bare minimum is when we'd really be looking to go to phase 2 at that point.
And I think it's important to remember or note that, like you said, during that time period, the revenue that's earned for real yields isn't just going somewhere, right? It's going to be used for those who stake, but just won't be able to claim until it's paid out in phase 2. So it's still generating, it's still accumulating, and you're not missing out on those.
Okay, and that's definitely good to know. And yeah, that was a very long answer, but it's not a simple question. I mean, because we're guessing what the future is going to happen, and none of us really know.
Yeah. And I think a lot of information, as we know when things are going to roll out, how comfortable we feel. If we think we need a little bit more time, 100%, we will be relaying all that out. It's not just going to be like, all right, guys, 4 weeks in, I think we're looking good now. We're going to launch tomorrow. No, we would, of course, make sure that, we give you guys updates, give you some more insight here and there. To go really deep into the technical side of things might bore people when we put announcements out. So it would just be more like, this is where we stand.
Absolutely. And, I find it comical that some people get irritated by too many announcements, and I would rather have too many than not enough. I can always mute them. But at least that way I can say, well, at least I knew what happened. It's an interesting fine line there.
Yeah, there is with announcements for sure.
Right. And now John specifically said, someone, I posted a question on Switch Discord main chat.
I just read it now. Which seat is hotter, Mad Hatters or Serenities? Oh, man.
Ooh, good question.
All right, well, I can't disrespect Mad Hatter because he's a fantastic guy.
He is.
He does make a pretty hot seat. Serenity's seat today, though, I will say today, has been a little warmer. It's been a little bit warmer. But that's not to say that if I jump back on, Mad Hatter throws a torch underneath me.
You started a vicious cycle, right? It just keeps getting worse as we go forward.
Yeah, I just keep. Both of them are hot. All right, I'm very warm where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah, Mad Hatter might have just fired up the extra burner.
Yeah.
Oh, he did, because he's gonna watch this. He's gonna critique. He's like, oh, really? Fine, I will be more vicious next time.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on there, and he's gonna be like, all right, Summit. So on this date and this month.
Yeah, sorry, we kind of started this vicious cycle, and you guys get to be the victim of it. So I do apologize for that.
Oh no.
And guys, remember, we are doing the giveaway. So if you're just tuning in, definitely type in the chat #Switch for the $75 giveaway we're going to be doing here once we're through all the Q&A. Okay, just a quick reminder there. So I got to get back because we're getting a bunch of conversations and chats coming through. Let's see, Phoenix Live. And we all would appreciate transparency of knowing how close we are to being ready to launch phase 2. So let's ask that, guys. As it goes live, are you guys going to give like a weekly updates? Like, okay, every your fireside chat or whatever, we've made this much, we're looking at this, or this went wrong, or this has problems, or this is going exceptionally well, so it's going to be shorter. Is there going to be like a weekly update, or how are you guys going to deliver that information?
So we used to do weekly like announcements. The problem with those weekly announcements is not something weekly was always there, right? You know, sometimes you have something that's major during the week, and sometimes it's just fluff. And I've heard, you know, the pros and cons of doing weekly announcements, but we decided to do you know, fireside chats instead, because it at the very least you're able to, you know, gauge and engage with the community on everything, and answer those questions, have those talks, things like that. I will say, when we have information, it will be shared. How often that information is shared is really difficult to say. It could be I get 3 announcements out in a week. It could be 1 announcement and then 1 week, and then 1 announcement the next week, or it could be, you know, every 2 weeks. I highly doubt it would be anything less than once a week. I really do. And that's just because we like to keep constant communication, and we always try to do 1 fireside chat a week. So you would, at the very minimum, see at least something coming out there. As we have information, it all comes out, but it's also valuable information. We post announcements that we try to make as as valuable as possible, rather than just, I always make the joke with the Twitter of like, hey guys, just took the biggest poop today. LOL, you know, it's like I don't want to be that guy in the announcement channel. So I want to make sure that if something's coming out, it's of value. It's not just fluff. I think it's going to be key though, for us being transparent on everything. But just like anything else, you know, there's always, you know, the level of internal information and external information. When we talk from a business standpoint, not everything is ready to be talked about, or maybe, you know, things are not talked about because it's just more internal based, you know, but we want to be as transparent as we can. So expect to see constant information. I just don't know how it's going to look like, because I don't know how we are going to fully gauge everything and how many adjustments would be made. Just keep pins on our, you know, our Twitter, or X now as we call it, Discord and Telegram and such.
Sounds good. And yeah, because that's one of those you never really know. And I hate that guy who's like, oh, I have to make a post today. And my Discord might be quiet for 3 days, but once I do post something, people are like, hey, what did he put? So I think that's really important there.
Yep.
And Cafe Guy says, Matt is mad now. He probably is. And for anybody watching, if you don't know, the Pillars community is an amazing group of people, and Matt Hatter is an awesome interviewer. I actually take notes from him. It's like, wow, you handled that question really well. I got to make a note of that. And so I have nothing but huge respect for those gentlemen over there, and for Matt Hatter as an interviewer. You guys are awesome. Keep up the great work. Okay, and see, step up. Ooh, uh-oh. Now it looks like I'm not pouring the coals to you hard enough, buddy. I got to turn the heat up. So on that, you know, we kind of touched on this, but let's say the spike goes up. Let's say the launch happens, and you know, we're making good revenue, and then it goes down, and we turn off we start phase 2. Then all of a sudden, some unforeseen tragedy occurs. Is there a battle plan if something goes horribly wrong after phase 2 is hit?
Yes. So I think it depends on the scenario that you're talking about, right? If we're looking at something where we see, I'm gonna go from like small to big. If we're looking like catastrophic events that are happening here, right? So if we're looking at great yield that's happening, okay, and then we start to taper down. That's where we start, you know, maybe injecting some of the Treasury funds in there, while we look to see what can we do to get more, you know, fees, and maybe, you know, slowly taper it down back to what we're absorbing. Okay. And then push more money into marketing and see how we can push from there. If we're talking, you know, things are going steady, but we're looking at, you know, coin dropping in price or value dropping in price there, that's where we already have the funds set to the side as far as like buyback burns, liquidity injections, things like that. If you're talking catastrophic events of like the perp dex is getting $12.36 a week, right? You know, it's not generating there. Which I'm going to be entirely, I don't think will happen. Okay. I really do not, but it's a talk that we had, you know, and I think it's very important to have that talk, and it's always an awkward talk, right? Because you never want to look at the failure of something, but you have to be prepared in case it does, you know? So if something like that were to happen, we would really focus on bolstering the token price to make sure that investors see value go back into the token price, while we pivot more towards looking into the DEX side of things and looking into the lottery side of things and the NFT elements. So really pushing, some money into that element and using other utility sides to create revenue from there. Let's say the lottery element doesn't work as well, then we have the DEX element that we're looking at in combination with the NFT element. Let's say the DEX isn't working well, then we have the lottery and the NFT element. So we have a lot of fail safes in action. But the biggest fail-safe, I would say, is we have this war chest that we would use to bolster back into the community, to give, the money back in there so people can continue trading the way that they would like, while we just give, while we work on a solution, while we try and find something else to continue bringing up the, Switch and the ecosystem and all of that. Again, though, I only say this as worst case catastrophic events. I'm always the person who would rather have a plan than not a plan. So it's things that we talk about, but I really don't think we're going to get into that position. I think that it will be a slow start. I don't expect it to launch with, hundreds of thousands of dollars in trading volume constantly, right? It's going to take time to gear up. But I do think that we're going to see some great movement now that other, perpetual exchanges on the Binance chain are not accessible as they were anymore. They can't be accessed in the USA or even like Switzerland or other places. It's so strange. And, of course, we are very careful with regulations and things like that as well. But, there's a lot of exchanges that are moving to different chains. And some of those chains, people who are on the Binance Smart Chain don't want to move over to. It's more expensive, or it's more confusing. I think the Binance Smart Chain is the easiest chain to use as far as getting into and even moving some tokens out. So I think when we look at the success and we're looking for that, we're I hate to say building off of others who are failing, but it's in a sense, true, where we're looking for those opportunities of improvement that other perpetual exchanges are leaving behind. But yeah, I'm confident in what we have, but I'm also always prepped for something that could go wrong. I always say, though, I am just one cog in the wheel, right? I am not the founder of this project. I am not a dev, nor is Mike, nor is anybody on the mod team. Okay. I kind of help engage with the community, but I don't make any of the decisions. I don't have those wallet accesses to pay anything out there. I don't have the millions of dollars, so it's important to know that, as much as I broadcast things just like everybody else, it's the devs have a plan that they see too, and they're going to execute on the best way that they see next forward.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, and just add to that real quick, that the volume on a perpetual exchange is variable. It does fluctuate. Some weeks there's a lot, some weeks there's not. Some days there's a lot, some days there's not. And that's that's across PDEXs in general. And that's a lot of that is tied to the actual volatility in the crypto markets itself, right? So there's some things that there's some things we can control, but there's a lot of things we can't control when it comes to that, especially. So I think it's important to put the expectation and understanding out that regardless of how well the perpetual exchange is doing, the revenue will be variable based on the volume. And, if there's there's some of the PDEXs that have been out there for a couple of years, a few months out of this year or up until maybe a few weeks or a month ago, some of the volumes were pretty low because the market was pretty slow as well. So, but then in literally a day, 24 hours, 36 hours, some of the volumes, were up 300 to 500%. And that translated into revenues and real yields and stuff too. So just important to note that everything may be working as designed, everything's going well, but we will still see variables. So.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important to look at those worst case scenarios. A lot of people don't like to talk about that. They don't like to visualize them, but we got to, because that's when something goes wrong, is when you don't plan for it. And so I'm one of those, I'm kind of like you, Summit. I want to plan for the worst case scenario and prepare for it. And so that way, no matter what, I'm never surprised.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I hate planning for that stuff, but it's got to be done.
Exactly. And
it's
I
like
think
a
that's
will,
one of those, Right.
Nobody wants to put a will together, or life, just any of that stuff. But there's certain things in life that it's better to prep for.
Yep.
There you go. And we've had a lot of comments come through. I'm trying to sort them out here. We've heard when's the moon? When is our our island tropical party for millionaires? When's that going to happen?
Oh gosh, I think we have that set for 2026. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, John made the reservation, so it's
that's all him on there. Something about 3
him.
private jets. I don't know if that'll be enough, but we'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, better make it 6, John. It's not enough. So no, I think I've covered about everything. I think we've gone through the questions. Is there anything I haven't asked, guys? Make sure to throw in the chat right now while we're wrapping this up here. And is there anything you guys want to add that I haven't touched on as of yet?
Gosh, no. I think after this, I'm gonna need some water.
Yeah, I'm doing that myself. That and piles of cough drops. No, this has been a great chat, and I think we've gone through just about everything. And I think we know what we're getting into. And if anybody doesn't know, if you want to learn more about Swych, down in the description is where you're going to find the links to the white paper, the Discord, the Twitter. Everything you want to know is down there. Definitely hop over there and ask these guys anything. They're willing to always talk to pretty much anybody about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. We're, for anybody that's not in the Discord and you have any questions, feel free to jump on in and we'll happily answer and to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, and I'll just refer everybody to Mike. I'm just gonna message him.
I don't know. Go ask Mike.
Yeah, my ping in the server is at Summit, just so you know.
Oh, yeah. Amazing how that works, huh?
Yeah. It's kind of like my house. Like, I don't know. Where's your mother? Go ask her. Done that many times in my life. So, guys, I'm gonna give you another 30 seconds. We're gonna do a $75 giveaway. Thanks to Summit and Mike for being so generous on that.
I've seen quite a few.
Yeah, we've got 29 entries so far. Just type in the chat, #Swych, just like you see on your screen. And if you would do me a huge favor, make sure to like and subscribe. And gentlemen, I got to ask you, my last question for you, when do we get to do this again?
That is a great question. And I would say probably after we get things launched. I think it would be good to maybe recap, or maybe depending on our time, we might get some stuff launch party-ish. I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk.
Like
for sure after we get everything out for the perp decks, I would be more than honored to come back on here and speak with you and your community if you would have us.
I would love to have you guys, but I got to, the only question is, can you handle the heat? Because the next one I got to turn it up again.
It's okay. I'll go buy one of those Dyson fans. I'll put it right next to me.
Got lights
off. Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals. Let's go.
Here you go.
See, you're set. Yeah, get a nice ice chiller pad to sit on, ice cold drink, air conditioner. It's like, okay, bring it on. Let's do it. Because that's when we've got to really look and see how has it performed. And so I think if we could definitely do something just after it launches, or even at the launch party, let's see what happens. How are you going to deal with if it crashes, if it doesn't launch, if things go wrong? All these are possibilities. And I think that's when we really see a team shine, is when things, not when they go right, but when they go wrong, and how does the team deal with it?
Yeah. And like I said, we are more than happy to answer questions, more than happy to let things get out in announcements and talk through things. And I will tell you, 3 hours before AMA, hey, how's it going?
Exactly. And so Sarah says, we do like launch parties. Yes, we do. We have a lot of fun at launch parties. It just gets crazy. So we get uncontrollable almost. So guys, I think it's time to do a giveaway. What do you guys think?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's spin the wheel. So if you are the winner, all you have to do is take a screenshot to verify it's you, jump in the Swych Discord, open a ticket, and let them know, hey, I won on Serenity's channel. Here's visual verification that, yes, that YouTube account is me, or Twitter or Facebook or whatever you are, because people will try and scam. So we do require you take a screenshot to verify your identity.
And we'll also ask for your blood type. That's just for analytics. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. We can do that. Okay. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Big money, no whammies.
Ooh.
Big money, no whammy. Pedro. Congratulations, Pedro.
Congrats.
Okay, so Pedro, all you have to do is take a screenshot, open a ticket over on the Swych community, let them know you're a winner, and they will get you all scored away, buddy. And your blood type, of course.
Yeah, blood type is needed. Yep, 100%.
Exactly. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for spending your Sunday with me, and thank you to everybody who's been watching. And as always, one thing I ever ask is, hey, take a moment, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check back, because we're going to be doing lots more of this stuff moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us on here.
Appreciate you, Serenity. Appreciate everybody being here, and everybody on both the Discords, all the communities too.
Yeah, for real.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend and stay safe out there. Catch you next time.